Welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And we are the Horror Boys. And it's not just any old podcast on this old internet. No, my friends. This is a horror movie review podcast where we review a horror movie every week.
Yeah, we do.
Crazy.
Who'd have thought?
I know. Haven't missed a week yet, which is honestly a miracle.
Yeah, it really is.
We have made
considering everything.
Yeah, all the craziness, the fact that we are the two surviving members of 4 different people who've been involved in this project.
Surviving. To clarify, everyone else is still alive.
Yes.
Gotta clarify that.
Well, the last time I checked, I haven't reached out to them today, so I hope that statement is true.
True. I guess you never know.
Yeah, no, they are alive and well from my knowledge, but they aren't here. And there was also just scheduling 3 to 4 people was hard, so I'm surprised we made it weekly. But we haven't missed a week
Somehow.
And today is our first day for the rest of this year that we're not going to be covering a big franchise at all. We have a bunch of one-offs.
Crazy.
So we're going to start with our first one-off, and that is The Wishmaster, or Wes Craven Presents The Wishmaster, because he was an executive producer, which could mean anything from he put a lot of money into it to he had some say to who knows. We have no idea what that exactly means.
Yeah.
At the very least, it seems like a stamp of approval. So
does make sense considering all of the people involved.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Our director, we'll start with, as we always do, is Robert Kurtzman, who hadn't really directed any other movies, had written From Dusk Till Dawn, but was most famously known in Hollywood as an effects artist. He is the K of K&B Effects, who you may have heard us talk about before. Which is him, Howard Berger, and Greg Nicotero. Probably should have flipped that order so it would have been the K, N, and B, but you get the point. And the K&B Effects is the people who will be doing our special effects for this movie. Obviously, it'd be really crazy if he picked a different effects group. He's like, I have an effects group. Tom Savini, come on in. Which, spoiler, he might be in this movie. But, Chris missed that apparently. And that's fair.
He's definitely in this movie.
Then we also have our writer, who is Peter Atkins, who wrote Hellraiser 2 through 4, which are, besides the original Hellraiser, the only other ones that anyone ever calls any bit of quality. There's mixed opinions on 3 and 4. 2 is typically considered the second best, but the only ones that you ever hear any positive opinions on are the 3 he wrote and the original.
Fair enough.
We have the composer, who is Harry Manfredini, who is the composer of Friday the 13th and a lot of the sequels. He's the guy. I'll have to be the one to do it, because if Chris does it, it won't pick up. But mine should. But yeah, he's here. We got our director of photography, Jacques Haitkin, who was the director of photography for Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2. This is a stacked horror lineup of people making this movie. Man, should have this been the perfect movie. And it's not that, but it is really fun, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely not perfect, but boy, is it a good time to watch.
Because there's a lot more horror stuff we'll bring up as we go through, but they're part of the cast, so we won't talk about them quite yet. Because first thing we're going to do is start with how the movie opens, and we open immediately
narration
with a title card, actually. Before we even get to the narration, we get a flaming title card saying Wishmaster. Then we head to some narration, which is being... Oh no, actually we don't. You caught me off guard. I think the narration is after, or maybe it is. I think the narration is after the credits. First, we get the credits, which the only reason I'll bring up is because stuff happens in them. We have the credits going over. It's like 2 minutes of credits going over a spell/potion kind of thing that is creating the stone of secret fire.
The fire opal.
Yeah. We then have a narration by Angus Scrim. It's just Angus Scrim. Yeah. Who is he's in Phantasm. He is the tall man. He is the first of many horror people we will see in this movie. And he's explaining to us about jinns and how they grant 3 wishes, and on the third, an unholy legions of the jinn shall be freed on the earth, and how they they live in between realms and whatnot. Yeah, and that's about it. That's the gist. We then head to Persia, back in 1127, where a king, the king is played by Richard Assad, who played the shopkeeper in an episode of Buffy. Specifically, he was the one who sold the Orb of Thessaly to Jenny Calendar in episode 9, Passions. This is for our Buffy fans. This is not for anyone but me and the Buffy fans. Remember the episode with the Orb of Thessaly? He was the one who sold Jenny the thing. Wow, crazy.
Has he anything else?
Not much. No? Not really. I mean, he did a lot of, random shopkeep roles because, he's a Middle Eastern man, so give him all those roles, and that's about it. But that was the one thing that stuck out to me. And I just wanted to bring it up because, I'm a big Buffy nerd. And the king who we actually don't see at this point, is using his second wish to be shown wonders. We then see a wizard named Zoroaster, or Zoroaster, I believe. Sorry. Played by Ari Borak, running through a palace, seeing the chaos caused. And then we kind of just, because it's just a big, crazy scene. It's really fun, but I'm just going to kind of list off the really cool, things that happen.
There's a lot.
We see a man, start off by seeing a man who is thrown back into the wall and, becomes part of the wall. So at first, a little bit of that, 90s CGI, but it transitions into, a really cool, actual him on, like a statue they made of him stuck in the wall. Mm-hmm. Lost my place, because, of course, it's a podcast. Have to do that.
Yeah, you gotta.
We see a monster, mouth thing attacking a woman from a man's gut. We see the best effect, definitely from this opening, we see an awesome effect of a man's skeleton ripping itself out of a man.
Yeah.
Wow. It was
wild.
Cool. Which then leads into some, very, classic feeling, stop motion effects of a skeleton. very, Clash of the Titans-esque looking skeleton guy running around. Which I'm fine with. It definitely, you could say, oh, that looks bad. But it just has, for me, it has that, nostalgia of, really old, not CGI, but, old stop-motion effects.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I could understand if someone went, oh, that looks terrible once he comes out. And that's fair as well.
Yeah. there's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. But then we get cool Snake Man.
Yeah, once again, really just...
Snake Man.
It's just here. He's just a Snake Man, but it's a really cool, snake outfit that they made, which is, the first thing, one of the first moments why, spoiler, I really like this movie for what it is this just gives me such, Buffy vibes, really, with, the weird costumes and, honestly, it kind of feels like it should have been on television, other than the violence and language, due to, the quality of it. But, it's got, such cool, monster effect and suits and stuff. I really enjoy it. But yeah, this is the first time where I go, ooh, look at the cool monster. Then Zoroaster goes into the quarters of, the king, and he stops the king from making a third wish with some wibbly wobbly 90s CGI effect.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie, and I'll probably bring it up every time it happens, but I personally don't really hold it against the movie because it just happens. It's what happens when you make movies in 97. You're gonna have some CGI because you think it's top of the line, and it was, but it's now 2022, and it doesn't hold up.
It does look like garbage. Yeah. The practical effects are cool.
Yeah. Which is, why we should just only use practical effects forever. And this wibbly wobbly stuff, it traps the Djinn, who is, the Djinn is played by, Andrew Divoff, who, the biggest role I saw of his, he's done a lot of stuff, but the biggest thing was he was actually in, like a season of, Lost. He plays a Russian with an eye patch in Lost. I kind of remember the character, I don't remember him, fully, but, I remember he, causes one of the, spoiler, I'm not gonna say the character's name, but he causes one of, the really most impactful deaths in the show, at least for me as a fan of Lost when I was watching it. So, yeah, he's here, and he, honestly, I'll bring it up here, I think he does a really fun job playing the Djinn. His voice he does for him is really creepy. I like the Djinn. He's also, once again, got a really cool, practical monster suit on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Djinn's trapped in the Stone of Secret Fire. We then head to America, present day. Obviously, that means 2022. It is present day whenever you watch the movie, and that's why we put the word present day. It really isn't something I have a complaint with this movie. That is a complaint I have in general when we see the words present day on anything. It's okay, just tell me the year, because you realize movies are made forever. People will see this.
Nope. After they made that movie, the world ended shortly after. Somebody made the third wish after,
Oh. Didn't know that.
Again.
Well, yeah, I believe, yes, it is supposed to be in, probably 96 is when they shot it, so that's probably what present day means. But I like to believe that the rest of this movie somehow takes place in 2022, and it doesn't make any sense with a lot of the technology used. But it's still what I like to believe. And then once we're in present day, we meet Mr. Raymond Beaumont, who is played by Robert Englund.
Woo, Freddy!
Yeah, Freddy Krueger. He's here, and for our cameos, he's definitely the one who gets the most screen time. We see the most of Robert Englund. Still not a lot.
So is his assistant, guy who
assistant
gets
Ed Finney, who is played by
Ted Raimi.
Yeah, Ted Raimi. Who is, the brother of Sam Raimi, as well as has his own career, but is, had his starts in, somehow in all three of, the, Evil Dead / Army of Darkness movies, even though I don't think he's the same character in any of them, but he's playing, different random roles throughout them, because you're going to give your brother a spot. Of course you are. Yeah, and he's also talking to a customs officer, Robert Englund, who is Mr. Beaumont. Don't want to call him Robert Englund throughout the whole thing, though. He's talking to a customs official who is played by Dan Hicks, who is apparently also, it seems to be a friend of Sam Raimi, because he was also in Sam Raimi's Darkman, Spider-Man 2, and Evil Dead 2. So he got a lot of roles in some Sam Raimi work. And they're talking about this old statue of Ahura Mazda that Mr. Beaumont has had brought in. It is a statue of a god that is from pre-Islamic times, but made after Islamic control had stopped, outlawed other gods in Persia. I don't know if that's historically accurate, but that's what they at least tell in the story. I did not look up a lot of history on the time, but it sounds very possible. So, but yeah, that's where the statue is. That's why it's so valuable, because it was made after it shouldn't have been legal to make.
Contraband.
Yeah. And then we meet a drunken construction worker named Mickey Torelli, played by Joseph Pilato of Dawn and Day of the Dead, who, and specifically Day of the Dead, I think has one of the coolest kills. I haven't even seen the movie, but I've seen clips of his kill in it, and it's really cool. He's like ripped to death by zombies. It's pretty cool. It's like that's his picture on IMDb is like his face as he's getting ripped up. But yeah, he's here, and he is, because he's drunk, he accidentally drops the statue and crushes Ed Finney, killing him. He is now out of the movie. No more Ted Raimi.
Yeah, it's a nice, 20 seconds of screen time.
Yeah. In the rubble of the statue, a different dock worker named Etchinson, played by Tom Kendall, finds a familiar-looking stone. We then head to Regal Auctioneers, where a pawn shop owner named Doug Clegg, played by John Biner, talks to the receptionist, Shannon, played by Wendy Benson, and the owner, Nick, played by Chris Lemmon, fun fact about Chris Lemmon, he gets to play his father, Jack Lemmon, in Netflix's Blonde, because his father was like a famous actor who was like in movies with Marilyn Monroe. I think he was in like As Hot as It Gets, or As Good as It Gets, something like that. Once again, not a huge Marilyn Monroe person, but he gets to play his dad in a movie, in the very, I believe, hated Netflix movie about Marilyn Monroe.
But I've also heard.
Yeah, but he gets to play his dad. I'm sure that was a cool experience for Chris.
Yeah. Not me. Chris Lemmon.
Yeah, Chris Lemmon. Yeah, sorry. I'm sure Chris Lemmon is happy he got to play his father. That's it. I mean, doesn't make having the movie had to be good.
Oh.
Nick wants to have Alex appraise the stone for Doug. Ooh. So that's where that scene ends. And we head to Alex, who is played by Tammy Lauren, who is playing tennis with Josh, played by Tony Crane. Josh wants to go out with her, but she rejects him because she doesn't want to ruin their friendship. Fair reason. So he's not taking any of that, and he keeps trying to like bug her about it. And he ends by he's just trying to guilt her basically into dating him. It's kind of jacked up. It's screwed up. Especially spoiler where the end of the story might go. The message here, terrible. But yeah, he ends it by casting a spell on her with his hat. Obviously, it's not a real spell, but it's just gross. This like sweaty hat he was just playing tennis with. He just rubs it all over her head.
Once again, that's where the magic comes from.
Apparently. We head to Alex, who is checking out the stone for Nick. She gets him to leave because he won't shut up, so he leaves, and she puts it under a microscope. And once she sees it under the microscope, she sees that there's... Oh, sorry, before she puts it under the microscope, she sees...
Yeah, she rubs it a bunch.
Yeah, she sees something in it, so she breathes on it and rubs it on her shirt. And I believe that's the first time we hear someone say something to her. No, we don't. Sorry, when she just rubs it, we see a quick shot of the djinn, like a little quick cut, like, djinn face, and then it goes away.
Well, he does also say
that's a little bit later. That's later. I think that's once she puts it under the thing, because I have that under in my notes, but it's not yet. Oh, no, it is. It's just, for some reason, I put it as two different lines. You're right. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I don't know why I would have separated those as two different lines.
I'm almost positive that she
hears, "You woke me." Then she puts the stone under her microscope. We see some more flashes of the djinn and some swirling in the middle of the stone. And then she gets jump scared by Nick. So she leaves to go do further tests on the stone. She does those tests by heading to Josh and having him do the tests at his university's science lab that he's doing science at. And he agrees to run some tests for her, and once again tries to ask her out to dinner, even though she's having none of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We then head to like a middle school girls basketball game or not a game, practice, where Alex is coaching them.
Because she's a gem appraiser and also a basketball coach.
Yeah, and maybe a college student.
I don't know.
I mean, neither. It's because she's got layers. She's not a one-dimensional character, Chris.
Nothing about her character to me makes sense. But,
yeah, no, that's fine. She then, and while she's there, the big reason we're bringing up the scene is because she instructs them on the importance of stillness. Remember stillness, everyone. It's very important to her. Back at the lab, Josh is doing a laser scan of the stone.
Yeah.
You know, as we all have the laser. You know, all labs have laser scans of you, like, it's this stone, like on the screen display. It's weird.
Yeah.
And the stone starts to break because of the lasers.
Stone science.
Yeah. And then we see some POV shots of some weird, like, hallway tunnels. What could those be? Before the machine explodes. We cut back to Alex at her practice, and she hears, "You woke me," again. She tries to call Josh about it, but he can't answer her because he's lying on the floor in pain and all bloody. With a tiny little Jin, physically in this scene, played by Vern Troyer of... Well, he goes on to after this, but it ends up being most famously known for the Austin Powers sequels. But I believe he starts in the second one, which I believe comes out like the year after this. So, but yeah, little Jin is physically played by Vern Troyer, but is still voiced by Divoff. And the Jin asks him, Josh, that is, if he wants the pain to cease. And he says yes. So the Jin says, "As you wish," and kills him. Because now his pain is gone.
Yeah.
He's one of those Jins. He's a monkey paw Jin.
Well, we're led to believe that's what all Jins actually are.
Yeah, I know. But for the sake of our audience who might be thinking of other types of genies. Oh, what? Oh. Is that what a Jin is? Yes, it is, if you didn't know. But yeah, Alex then gets a vision of Josh dying, as well as the Jin transitioning from tiny Jin to medium Jin, who is
get some really excellent weird screams from Tammy Lauren.
Yeah, she's got... I mean, it's a hard thing she's asked to do, just like scream in pain, because maybe she's feeling the pain of the kills, is kind of what it maybe feels like later. I can't tell what's happening to her.
But every time one of these scenes happens, boy, does she really
have to try her best to act at nothing.
Yeah, it is hilarious.
Yeah, it is great. And also, but Jin is transitioning into medium Jin, who is physically played by Walter Phelan, who he is specifically, I believe, cast in this movie because he's so skinny. They were able to like have this like more medium Jin because, you know, like when you have to make a movie like this, you have to put a lot of makeup on the person to like make them look like the monsters, but they didn't want like an average skinny guy because then they're still gonna look too big. So they got the guy who's like really skinny. He's done a lot of like roles as like skinny monsters or aliens or demons or stuff. Specifically, one of the ones I'll bring up is he was in House of 1,000 Corpses. So he played Dr. Satan, I believe, in that. But yeah, you know, so he's an actor who plays this body of Jin, who I think we see maybe one more time, maybe only in this scene. I'm not sure, but you know,
might only be in this scene.
But yeah, the Jin takes the stone pieces and he leaves. We cut to a little bit later where Alex is barging into this crime scene and she talks to Detective Nathanson, who is played by Rico Ross of Aliens. He's one of the Marines in Aliens. It's like the 7th or 8th Marine. I feel like we've been covering from Aliens the last couple weeks. Like everyone is... There's a lot of characters in Aliens, so a lot of their cast can show up in other things. Yeah. We then head outside. After she has a little brief conversation with him, we head outside to the outside of a pharmacy where a homeless man, played by Buck Flower of Back to the Future and They Live, and like every other John Carpenter movie, pretty much except for Halloween. He is very much like a character actor who's in a lot of things. A lot of times playing like a bum/homeless man, which is what he is doing in this movie. And he's talking to, and he's told to stop panhandling by the pharmacist, who is played by Reggie Bannister of Phantasm. They then have a very funny back and forth that I cannot repeat literally any of. Just know that it was fun. It was a fun back and forth between the two. I enjoyed it. They both say a lot of mean things back and forth to each other that I thought was just delivered perfectly by both of them. Especially Buckflower. Yeah. Buckflower has really delivered his lines in a way that I loved in this movie. He does throw out one maybe racially driven insult at the end that I didn't quite understand, so I will mention that and say that I did love that part. Make sure to cover my bases immediately. But he only says one of those, and he's in 3 minutes of a scene, and it's one word. So overall, I still think his performance was really fun. But I will address the slight racist elephant in the room. But yeah, it's a really funny back and forth that we can't repeat any of. One, because of racism, mostly, though, because of F words. Lots of F words.
Yes.
And yeah, he's continuing to curse about him, even after he's the pharmacist back inside, as he walks around to the back, just cursing about him, when he runs into the Djinn, who asks if he meant the curses, and what would he give to see them come true. The bum says he's only has a cigarette and a handshake to give. The Djinn says he has a soul, and the bum replies that he would take a shower in a jug of Jack for his soul. And the Djinn says that the death of your enemy would be a bargain, which the bum's like, yeah, I mean, you're weird. I think he says you're effed up. You're real effed up, but I like it. I like the way you think. It's just his delivery is great. He's such a lovable, filthy bum that is terrible, which is weird that you can make a filthy, cursing bum be any bit lovable at all. But he just has such a charm to him in these scenes that I'm like, oh, I love this horrible, horrible man. And then the Djinn asks how he should die, and the bum says that he should only get cancer. Get cancer and die. Then we cut inside, where the pharmacist, I guess, gets super cancer. Because he starts
super cancer that just covers every inch of his body.
Yeah, he just starts freaking out. We get a quick cut of Alex getting the vision and freaking out about it, and running out of the crime scene she's at. We come back to the pharmacist, who is now covered in blisters and foaming from the mouth.
Pus oozing from the skin.
Fun fact about this scene, kind of hinted at it in the intro. Tom Savini is one of the people in their pharmacy. He's one of the people checking on the pharmacist in the scene.
Huh.
Yeah. I also believe there's also a random... I think the villain from Ghoulies is also in this scene. But I've never seen Ghoulies, so...
Nor have I.
Yeah, but he was on the cast list, so...
Huh.
When I watched it knowing Tom Savini was in the scene, I was like, oh, Tom Savini. I could not figure out who the guy from Ghoulies was. But he's in the scene. For the Ghoulies fans, I'll give you representation here. Let you know that he was here. The bad guy. The bum freaks out and runs away, dropping his cigarette. It's really, once again, really well done, little scene of him, looking at his cigarette before dropping it, oh, crap, cancer? That's what cancer is? And throws it down, kind of, it's great. And he runs off screaming. The Djinn picks up the cigarette as he tells the bum, who can't even hear him at this point, to run and warn the people about him while he still has a soul to do so, basically. And then ends the scene taking a drag off the cigarette, which is just such a hilarious image of this big monster smoking a cigarette I'm cool. Which, yeah. I want to make sure it's clear, I'm not saying cigarettes are cool, but in the 90s they were. So it definitely is, he's giving off the vibe of look at me, I'm smoking.
And then we transition to, I forget Tammy Lauren's character's name. Alex. Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, it was actually a really cool shot where they zoom in on his cigarette and then cut to her cigarette. It was it was some cool like direction there.
Yeah.
And Alex is talking to her sister, who is Shannon, who is the receptionist from earlier. And Alex talks about how she blames herself for what happened to Josh. And Shannon asks Alex if she wants her to call the doctor because she's imagining things like the last time. And you're like, oh, what, like the last time? Oh, well, don't worry. They tell you in this scene. Alex says she's fine, and it's not like the last time. We then find out that the last time specifically is that Alex saved Shannon from a fire 5 years ago, but not their mom and dad. Alright, movie, just dropping this random, like, lore dump about these two characters here, about how they, like, Alex has guilt for feeling like she caused her parents' death by just not being able to save them. Jeez.
Just like the leukemia and bone marrow, and don't hide under the bed.
That's a reference that no one gets on here. Stop it.
Oh, it's a horror movie for kids.
Exactly.
People our age probably know the reference I'm making.
Maybe. But I don't know what our actual demographic is, so I don't know if anyone who actually watches the podcast knows that reference at all.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
We then read that. We transition into the fireplace. This is a really cool, like, shot of, like, it transitioning into the fireplace. Like, the camera zooms into the fireplace and the fire turns into a nightmare of the fire where Alex couldn't sit. Is like, sees, what's her
mom?
name? Shannon screaming.
Oh.
You would think it's her mom, because, like, we're like, oh, her not being able to save her mom, but due to the fact that this scene is shown again later, we know it's not. It's actually apparently her feeling...
Having a vision of the future?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Of her sister now in the fire. But then she wakes up, so it's okay. But wait, she woke up at the tennis court, and is standing next to a zombie, Josh, and then wakes up screaming for real.
And sweating profusely.
Yeah. And she hears the djinn say, I can smell your fear. Then Alex heads to the dock to talk to Etchison and get info on the stone. Yeah, we then cut to a pointless, but I will bring it up because it takes 36 seconds, scene of the djinn walking up the stairs to the School of Medicine.
Yeah, it does happen. Well...
Like,
I think it's to, point out the fact that everyone's like...
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, I will say there's nothing wrong. Like, that element of it is kind of cool, is, like, showing, like, actual people react the way they should when a monster is walking next to them. But it didn't have to be 36 seconds long. It feels really long. Like, you're watching him walk up, like, 3 flights of, like, college stairs, and, like, you see all of it, and you're like, we just had to see, like, the shot of him walking up, one person freaking out, and then the pan to the sign. But we watch him walk up the whole staircase.
Uh-huh. And into the School of Medicine.
Yes. We then head to Alex, who is meeting with Mr. Beaumont at, I believe, his museum. I thought it was, like, his really fancy house, but I heard on the Dead Meat podcast that it's actually his museum, that they were also surprised to figure that out. So I don't know where they got that from. I thought it was, like, his, like, fancy estate, but it might be his museum. She gives condolences for his loss, and he very funnily, like, talks about the statue instead and doesn't realize what she's talking about. He's like, yes, it was so irreplaceable, and she's like, you're talking about your assistant? And he's like, yeah.
Yes, of course.
She asks him if the statue was bejeweled, and he says no. And they walk off to look at something else. As we cut away to the djinn, running his hand over a corpse. Oh, what could this be? We cut back to Mr. Beaumont, showing Alex the treasure room of the museum, well, all the treasures of these lost gods, and statues, mostly of them. Before he tells her more about the god Ahura Mazda, and the statue that the statue that he had was made of. He tells her he was the monotheistic deity of the Zoroastrian religion, which is actually a real Iranian religion. I believe is believed to be one of the first monotheistic religions. Huh. So yeah, and like Ahura Mazda is actually the real like god, like the main god of that, and like whatnot. And he also tells us that the legend has it that the opposing force was his own shadow. Which, after knowing that there was about a real religion, I did like research into this religion. Could not find one thing about this part. This sounds like it was made up for this movie.
Probably was.
Yeah, it does not sound like that part was at all real. He wants to send her to a woman at the university to help her with more questions she might have about jinns, because she started like asking a little bit of questions about jinns, it seems. Then we come back to the jinn, who's now removing the face of the corpse, when he's caught by this medical student who is played by Brian Kluger, I believe. And Brian Kluger went on to write the story for Tron Legacy? I mean, it's a pretty big movie. That's kind of crazy that this random nobody actor in this movie went on to write a not great, but really famous movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's great. Good for him. I'm sure he made money on it. It also,
as long as he wasn't the one who came up with the name The Rinsler, then...
And also, okay. It's one of those things, though, where he wrote the story, and then there was also someone who wrote the screenplay by, which means I don't know how that works with writing credits. He might have just came up with the idea that someone else then, like, really worked on. I'm not sure how that works exactly. So, I don't know.
Neither do I.
But yeah. The djinn asked the student if this is something that he didn't wish to see, and the student mistakenly says, uh-huh, and gets his eyes, like, sewn shut.
Yeah.
The djinn then puts on the face and becomes Nathaniel Demarest, which is like, it's actually really, you know, Andrew Divoff now not wearing makeup is this new form of the djinn he can be.
Yeah, he takes the face of himself and puts it on himself.
Yeah. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds really weird, but he takes this face of a character, a dead man named Nathaniel Demarest. We then cut to Alex, who is screaming as she sees flashes of Nathaniel Jinn. After helping her up, Mr. Beaumont invites her and her sister to his party, and she's like, "Yeah, I probably won't be there." We head to Alex getting lore dump from Professor Wendy Derleth, who is played by Jenny O'Hara, who has like 170 roles. Like, she's a prolific character actress who I personally, though, didn't recognize any of them specifically, or felt like any of them were worth, for me at least, bringing up. But she is a very... She's an actress that you've probably seen her face in something, even if you can't put your finger on what it is.
I believe it might be pronounced Jenny O'Hara as well. I'm not entirely sure.
Fair enough.
But her name does sound incredibly familiar.
We then head back to Jin, who is getting a suit with the help of Ariella, played by Gretchen Palmer, and he has her wish for the cash to buy his suit, and I think it was a clever way of like explaining how he wouldn't have like any money. So he's like, "Would you prefer cash or card?" Or kind of basically, and she's like, "I guess cash." So then he magically made cash appear in her bra for the suit, and it was like, all right, that's a cool way of doing it. And then he gets her to wish to be beautiful forever, because he's basically like, "Hey, you're pretty, but it's gonna go away." And she's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, that's life." And he's like, "But what if it isn't? You want to be pretty forever?" And she's like, I guess. And he's like, basically, wish it. And she's like, I wish I was pretty forever. He's like, all right. And turns her into
a mannequin.
Yeah.
Right. So she can be vaguely creepy, but also beautiful.
Forever.
All the time.
Yeah. We cut to Alex, who is zoning out while, seeing Ariella And which first time she doesn't really like scream while it happens. I guess whatever happens to Ariel maybe wasn't painful, so that's why she didn't scream. Maybe.
She just gets turned into a mannequin.
But yeah, she comes back to, and as she's coming back to, she hears, "I will find you." Oh. Professor Derleth, I believe is how I'm hearing it pronounced. It's not how it's spelled at all. That's why it's really confusing. The way it's spelled is Derleth, but the one time we hear it pronounced was Derleth, which would not be how I would have thought that would have pronounced. So I'm pretty sure it's Derleth, but I could be wrong. And she continues her explanation after a quick jump scare from a masked student. Because there's a play happening. I didn't mention that because it wasn't important. But yeah, Derleth is the head of a different department, but is helping on this play because it's like set in ancient Persia, which is more her like expertise, basically. But yeah, Derleth informs her that real jinns aren't good like in fairy tales, and that they're pure evil, basically. It's a long scene. There was like one funny line about like when Alex goes like, "So you read genies?" And she's like, "Yeah, but not like Robin Williams." And she also mentions, I believe, I don't remember the other. She mentions the lady who's also in like I Dream of Jeannie. Forgot that actress's name, but yeah,
couldn't tell you.
But she mentions both of them. I thought it was cool to be like, oh yeah, I like when you have like those slightly meta real moments where it's like, yeah, they know about real things. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We head to Nathaniel Jin showing up at the police station. He asks Detective Nathanson for Alex's, I thought it was her address, but I think he was actually maybe trying to get her phone number. I'm not sure which one he's trying to get exactly here. But Detective Nathanson starts to say no, but is also mostly just distracted by this guilty man who keeps, getting free, and he's like really upset about it, so he tells the Jin about it when he asks him to. And Detective Nathanson says he wishes he could get him on Murder 1 with eyewitnesses. Silly man, shouldn't have said that. So the Jin has the guy stand up, grab a gun, and shoot 2 cops down. And in the commotion, Nathanson runs over, so the Jin is able to steal Alex's business card. But Detective Nathanson does look over at him, so to distract him more, he waves his finger to make the random crook do more. So the crook ends up ripping a guy's jaw clean off. Really cool effect.
And then bops another guy on the head with it.
And Nathanson shoots him down, and the Jin has now escaped. He's not there.
Yeah.
We head to an Alex doing research on the Jin montage. I missed a word in that, but so it was why I was confusing. She's doing research on the Jins. And she finds out whoever frees him has to have 3 wishes granted before, the Jin to come to power. We then head to the Jin at Regal Auctioneers, where he talks to a security guard.
Played by Kane Hodder.
Woo! Woo! Best Jason! But yeah, and also, Victor Crowley for our Horror Bois fans. But yeah, he's here, and he's cool. He's Kane Hodder. He won't let the Jin in, so the Jin tells him to ask for something. And I'm just going to say Hodder because his character literally doesn't have a name, so I'm going to refer to him as Kane Hodder. I'm sorry. Hodder replies, "I want you to leave." And this really funny scene that the Jin is forced to turn around and start walking away. And he's like, no, let me in. I really liked it because it's oh yeah, well, if you wish him to go away, he has to just go away.
Yeah.
But when he says, to let him inside, Hodder replies, "You'd have to get through me, and I'd love to see that." Silly Kane Hodder. So the Jin
CGI transmogrified into the glass door.
Yeah, he uses some CGI magic. to turn Hodder into a stained glass door, which I believe, from my understanding, once he transitions him, like, you can't fully tell, but I've heard that, like, what he transitions him into is actually a real, like, piece of stained glass thing they made. But they, like, also really liked it, so they didn't want to break it. That's why they end up using CGI for, like, how they destroy
break
it.
the glass?
Because I believe that still actually exists, the stained glass of him that was made for the movie. So...
Yeah.
So yeah, he ends up walking through him. You would think once again like that he's gonna walk through him and it shatter, but if he like opens an imaginary door in him, walks through, closes it, and then he shatters into CGI particle effects.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, I will say that is the one flaw. I mean, there's a lot of flaws, but that's the biggest flaw for me is that it's the CGI effects. They don't quite hold up. But also, I'll be honest, there's a little bit of a charm to how bad they are for me. There's a little bit of a 90s nostalgia of me going like, oh, that's terrible. I love it. I love how terrible it is in a way.
Not for me.
That's fair. I'm also willing to just... It's also something for me that I just also don't care that much about, because it's like, once again, also, there's nothing they could do about it. It was a 90s movie. They were going to use some CGI. And for them, they're like, this is the best thing we could ever do. And, for them it was. Problem was, like 2 years later, it wasn't.
Yep.
And now it's 28 years later, so... No, 25, sorry. What time was off there?
Yeah, technology's advanced a little bit.
Just a bit.
Just a tad, really.
Yeah. So inside, the Djinn asked Nick for Alex's address, and he says no. So the Djinn picks up an artifact and asks him if he would like it to be 100 times more valuable. And Nick's like, yeah, of course I would, but what do you mean? So the Djinn just waves his hand over it, and it's now turned to gold and filled with diamonds. Which Nick is really impressed by. The Djinn asks again...
If he's like, what, David Blaine or something?
Yeah. The Djinn asks again, like, hey, give me Alex's address. And Nick is still like, I don't think I'm comfortable doing that. And so the Djinn's like, we'll make you comfortable. And he's like, what's my limit? And he's like, your imagination. So he's like, I guess $1 million. So the Djinn's going to give him $1 million. Well, let's find out how he's going to do that, because we cut to Nick's mom, who is making Nick the beneficiary on $1 million life insurance policy before she gets on a plane, which then immediately explodes.
Yeah.
Killing hundreds of people.
Tens of people.
Huh?
Tens of people.
There's typically at least like over 100 people on a plane. So
maybe just over 100.
It depends on the size of the plane. I believe some planes go up to like 200, but it doesn't matter.
It's neither here nor there.
Either way, it's still this
kills way more than just Nick's mom.
Exactly, which I think is even great. I think it's great. Like, yeah, kill more people. You're the bad guy. Do it. But yeah, so he kills Nick's mom. Which, technically he made the man $1 million richer, so I guess he didn't lie. We then head to a basketball practice that Alex had shown up late to. Her and her sister are there, and she tries to call Professor Derleth, but Derleth... This is on Shannon's phone, but Derleth doesn't answer. So she goes back to coaching. And then Nathaniel Djinn, is like, hey, can I borrow your phone too? And he also calls Professor Derleth. Due to what we know a little bit later in the movie, I guess he's hoping on her answering machine she's going to tell where her office is, or her home is, or whatever. Somehow that works, though.
Somehow.
But yeah. I do have a quick shot of Alex seeing the Djinn before he disappears. We then see alternating shots of the Djinn reclaiming the souls of people he granted wishes for, and Alex freaking out, doing her Alex thing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this scene, you don't know, it's still a little bit overacting and whatnot, but I actually think this scene was better than she did in the other ones when it came to seeming in anguish. Then after that, Alex then gets a call from Ghostface. Sorry, wrong franchise. She gets a call from the Djinn, telling her only she can end their pain. We then head to Alex talking to Professor Derleth about the Djinn at Derleth's house, office, apartment. It's her house because she has a bedroom there. So yeah, it's at her house or apartment, I guess. I think it actually specifically is an apartment. But, and we also, in like a scene right before this, we do see, like in the scene where he's like refixing the stones, the Djinn is in the same room that they're in right now. So the Djinn could show up any minute now, guys. Somehow, Derleth knows where Alex works, even though she had never brought it up. And Alex, trying to figure it out, was like, oh, maybe Boma must have told her. Then Professor Derleth says only spells. Wait, what? Says any spell Alex is looking for to stop a Djinn are lost to time. Derleth laughs at how powerful a Djinn would be in a world without any opposing magic. Derleth then asks Alex if she's hungry, which is after earlier in the scene she's already asked her if she's cold or if she's thirsty. Derleth's been asking a lot of questions for some reason. And Alex kind of seemed to, for a second here, go like, oh, wait a second. Why are you asking me so many questions? But then they just kind of continue the conversation. Alex says if there's no magic or hope, she'll have to rely on herself, which Derleth thinks is crazy. Derleth asks what she can do to help Alex. And Alex is not answering any of these questions now because Alex seems to have figured it out at this point. And Alex gets up to leave before the Djinn reverts back to Nathaniel form. And he reveals he had killed Derleth with... Well, actually he didn't, according to him. He says he didn't kill her. He had to have her to wish to die. Like, she did it. I didn't do it. I can't kill people. She had to wish to die because I was too scary for her.
Ooh.
I will say there's like a quick cut showing her dead body. Some cool gore effects, as you'd expect in a movie made by effects guys. Or I guess at least you'd hope. Maybe not expect. He then asks where her sister is. And Alex says,
if you hurt my sister,
I'll kill you. He then reveals his true Djinn form to her and says... He doesn't say what I'm going to say, but he says the worst version of it, but I just have to bring it up because it's just such an insane line to have a demonic Djinn creature to say, the poop just hit the fan, didn't it? And it's like, alright. But I love it. Like, it's so stupid to have the Djinn say a line like that. It's like, sure, I'm in. I am completely into the Djinn somehow knowing this random vernacular that he definitely would not know, but it is and shouldn't come out of a mouth of this giant demon. It's great. He asks her to make 3 wishes. She asks, any wishes? I can wish about anything? And she's like, what would happen if I had wished for you to kill yourself? So he's like, alright, I'll give you 1 bonus wish. So she wishes that he'll blow his brains out. So he shoots himself in the head, but it just immediately heals itself.
Yeah.
But he says, if it's any consolation, sweet Alex, that hurt like hell. Which once again, I love the Djinn's lines. It's just it's great. She then wishes to know what he is. So he takes her into the Stone of Secret Fire and shows her him torturing the souls he had claimed already, and basically says, it's longer than this, but basically the gist of it is, I'm evil.
Pretty much.
He has a whole speech, but it's basically just, I'm the bad guy. And you're like, I know, we kind of figured that out. feel like he didn't actually answer.
Bad guy.
I feel like he didn't really tell her anything new about him other than like, I am a dark force of demonic energy. It's like, okay, I mean, I think she already knew that. When she asked to know more about you, I feel like you didn't tell her anything other than I'm bad. And it's like, all right. I mean, you are the djinn, so like it's fair. You're not giving her actual more information, but I still have to watch this scene where you're just saying I'm evil in like a bunch of paraphrases.
And there's a bunch of spooky stuff that happens, Austin. Jeez.
Yeah, because we see him like that's him torturing stuff. We see all the like people being tortured in crazy ways.
It's mainly just that, and then we get an excuse to use the set of being inside the secret fire opal. Yep.
Yeah. He tells her she should have been. Oh, sorry, no. Then he has. I say cool. You could say maybe not. I thought it was cool looking demon dog puppet. Like it's random and there's no reason for it to be here. Like there's no other like at any moment where you're like, oh yeah, the djinn and their demon dogs. But it's here now and it's cool. And he chases her through these halls. It's a long, prolonged chase scene. He then eventually stops the chase and tells her that, she needed to be more careful with her wishes, with, like, the wording of them. He then threatens her sister, which gets her to use her second wish to be back in her apartment without him there. And once she's there, she finds a note from Shannon saying she went to Beaumont's party.
Yeah.
Then the djinn calls her and taunts her a little bit. He's like, I'm going to kill you. We then head her speeding to the party, having flashes of the djinn's victims before she slams on her brakes to not hit some random pedestrians. Then, for some reason, the djinn just punches out her window. And it's like, and then she just starts speeding again. And it's like,
you can't escape the djinn.
But none of this whole scene didn't need to happen. I don't understand why.
It doesn't matter.
I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand why they even chose to include it. Like, it literally adds nothing. It's like
time.
I guess, but like it's like an hour and a half movie. If you made it like an hour and 29 minutes, is what you'd get if you cut out her stopping and getting her window punched out. It'd be like it's still long enough that no one would question it.
Yeah, it would still be fine.
Yeah, but it's here. He punches out the window and she speeds back off.
And now we're at the party.
Yeah, we're at the party. At the party, she tells the doorman, who is Johnny Valentine, who is played by national treasure Tony Todd.
Woo! Candyman.
Yeah, he's back. He's the national treasure. We've talked about him before when he was in the Hatchet films, but he's also definitely most known for being Candyman. But he's back, and he's playing Johnny Valentine, and he's still Tony Todd, and he's still amazing. And she tells to get herself into the party after she's on the list. She's like, "Hey, Nathaniel over there, he's trying to kill me." And Nathaniel or Johnny Valentine's like, "Oh, he's a good man." He he's like, "All right, you go in. He's gonna go rough up this Nathaniel guy," or so he thinks. She goes inside. Valentine goes to deal with the djinn. At first, he's not biting on any of the djinn's bait.
Wish bait.
Yeah, he's like, shut up, basically. But eventually, the djinn gets Valentine to wish for a more exciting job. He gets him to specifically use the words like,
ask for escape.
Yeah. And, well, he does. He's like, I would like escape. Then we see Valentine straight-jacketed and chained in a tank of water a la Houdini. And there's even in case you couldn't tell, this is like a Houdini trap. The djinn, as he walks away, goes, Houdini did it in 2.5 minutes. And then we never see Tony Todd again, so assumingly Valentine dies. Because he is not a master magician. I like to think, though, this is my headcanon right now in the moment, that the djinn, he's evil, but he's still a fair evil, and he actually still gave him the lock. He just did the man. Valentine didn't have the preparation, didn't have the practice. He's like, I'm still gonna let him have the chance to escape, but that probably didn't happen. But inside, Alex tries to get Shannon to leave, but she wants to talk to the hot guy over there that Mr. Beaumont's talking to. And who's the hot guy? Oh, it's Nathaniel / the djinn.
It's the djinn.
Yeah. The djinn is talking to Mr. Beaumont, and gets him to wish for a party like at the beginning. He's like, I've seen a crazy party before. It went down in history. Would you like a party like that? And Mr. Beaumont's like, oh, I'd love a party to go down in history. Yeah. Which was the biggest mistake, because that basically gives the djinn free reign to do whatever the heck he wants for the rest of the movie. The rules are out of the playbook, no more rules anymore, because as long as it's at this party, he can do anything, because it'll now go down in history.
Yeah,
which I'm fine
now
with.
We have a second intro scene to this movie.
Basically. And, like, here's the thing. I will say, you could say that's a little bit of lazy writing, how that, like, after this one wish, nothing else is wished for in the rest of the movie, but I'm fine with it. Like, I can see where the complaint is there, and I'll acknowledge that it's fair, but I still enjoy it, so...
But it's still a cool scene overall.
So the party starts going crazy. First thing we got is a woman's turned into glass and some 90s CGI magic. But then, like, after she explodes, it does turn into what looks like practical, like, glass explosion as glass flies through the air. It looks like there is, like, actual sugar glass being thrown through the air after she actually explodes. So, like, it looks like they're trying to, like, mix the things. It's like, we can throw fake glass at, like, all our extras, but we can't make a woman turn into glass. Which, fair. And honestly, when it comes to the CGI they've used in this movie, I feel like the glass version of her was the least offensive we saw. It almost worked. Not quite, but it almost was like, I was like, I could see it was better than other stuff, is all I'll say.
It was better than the Kane Hodder thing. Kane Hodder exploding morph glass.
Yeah. That leads to some pretty gnarly gore, because after she explodes, like, you see a bunch of, like, random people with, like, gore on their face and stuff, and just because, it's time to just show off the effects crew.
Everything's going down.
Robert Kurtzman himself, who is the director and, effects guy, gets his head ripped off by piano wire. Because there's, like, this, once again, badly for a second, CGI piano wire that comes out, but then right after that first shot of it flying, it's all practical as it wraps around his arms and then his head and rips off his head. Apparently, I don't remember the exact movie they had made it for, but the head they used for this, they had made for, like, some other movie that he'd done, and it wasn't, like, the scene was cut. Then they were planning on maybe putting it in From Dusk Till Dawn, but then that scene got cut. So this is them finally able to use this fake head they made of him.
Yes. At long last.
Yeah. Shannon and Alex get separated. We then have a man who gets caught on fire in a dope fire stunt. It's really long. It's also like he ends up gets caught in a fireplace and then runs through a window and then like crashes through the window and is still on fire. And that's all actually one take of like him crashing through too, because they actually had to they tried to shoot it and the window didn't break, so they actually had to do it again.
Fun.
Yeah. We see some weird tentacles in a gut of a guy, like in the guy's neck. It's like a weird, like, tentacle creature. It's making, like, buzzing fly sounds almost. It's just a cool monster gore effect. It's never explained. Yeah. The djinn walks up and he's like, asks Alice to use her last wish to fix the party, and she asks if he's going to kill her, and he replies, he just needs her to wish she were dead. Yeah. And then he brings a statue to life. It's like a Neptune maybe or something like that, because he has a
and he throws a trident
at her, and he misses her and she runs away. It seems like he's chasing her. I don't know if we actually ever see him again, so maybe she just thinks he's chasing her.
But she runs into Beaumont.
Yeah, she runs into Beaumont, who immediately starts just coughing up his own tentacle monster thing.
It's like still connected to his mouth.
Yeah. And it's like grabbing at her leg. So she has to break a vase and then cut herself free. Then some security guards show up, including one of them is Howard Berger, one of the special effects guys, one of the B of K&B. But they're like killed all one by one by hallway statues that also come to life. Once again, like
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all cool. I'm just not going to write down each individual way like a statue. No, but like this scene is cool. It's a one sentence in the podcast, but it is cool. This whole ending sequence is really cool.
Watch this movie.
Yeah, really watch the movie. Then Jack the Ripper comes out of a painting behind them, to kill the last guard.
Security guard.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, before we move on, I will cut back to that scene that we really went over real quick. One of the kills specifically was really cool. It was actually Howard Burgess' kill. Yeah, where he gets like his head maced and they like have his head crushed in. Cool shot. Bring that up before we move on. But yeah, the last guard is just kind of stabbed by Jack the Ripper.
He gets his throat slit.
Does he? But it's like off camera, isn't it? I don't think you see the actually get his throat slit, do you?
Well, it's like the way they angle the shot. Yeah. You don't really see it happening, but they definitely make a point of him.
I'm still disappointed though that like we didn't see gore there.
See the gore? Yeah, that's fair.
So then Alex has to run off again, continuing to look for Shannon. She goes into the room where a Ahura Mazda statue should have been, what we saw earlier. And she gets cornered in there
by the Jinn.
By some statues and Jinn. And he reveals to her that he's trapped her sister in a painting. And she's in this like painting, and we hear her screaming. Yeah. And it's the painting is of the same scene from her nightmare earlier. That's what we referenced earlier. I think it was of her, not the mom. Because also, if it was the mom, they would have had to hire a different actress. Right. That's more people. So yeah, he then sets the painting Alex on fire with like a really stupid line, but that I love.
Yeah, because he asks Alex if she likes the picture, and she's like, "No, just let her." And he's like, "Well, F it." Yeah, and then he just lit it on fire.
Well, that's not it though. He says, "Well, F it," which is also like weird to hear a demon say. But then he goes like, "If you can't join them, burn them, baby."
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. It's so stupid.
There's the burn them baby line.
Burn them baby. I love it. It's so bad. And he asks her to make her final wish. She remembers to have stillness.
Power of stillness.
And she flashes back to the paper from her research and her wish is that Mickey Torelli wasn't drinking on the job 2 days ago. Which starts to undo everything. The Jinn is sucked into the stone as the statues explode. Now I'll tell you a fun story about these statues exploding. It caused like a serious fire on set one day while they were doing it because they had like 4 different charges throughout the statue, but the statue was made of like this foam. So after the first 2 went off, it was the foam had become particles in the air. Right. So when the last charge went off, it just lit them all up and like the whole room caught on fire. I believe no one got hurt, but yeah, it's crazy. It's a cool shot. Cool explosions. Explosions are always fun to see on camera.
I also like the crumpling bronze statue.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
We then have a quick scene of Mickey successfully lowering the statue.
And Ed did not get crushed.
Yeah, Ed's still alive. Yay. We then head to Alex. For some reason asking Josh out on a date because, hey, if you're going to miss someone when they're dead, you might as well date them.
Yeah. That's what they say.
And then she kisses him.
And he's like, what's wrong with you?
Maybe we just don't... He's, for some reason, now not trying to date her. This version of him doesn't have a desire to date her.
How about some hot dogs and a ball game?
Which is a line from earlier, played back in the opposite roles. But it's just like, once again, a horrible message to send. Like, it's okay to not want to date someone. And, like, she didn't. She cared about their friendship more. But then the movie's like, yeah, but what if she didn't? We then end the movie with this really kind of cool shot that zooms in on the statue, and then into the stone in the statue, and then into the Jinn's eye, as we end with his laughing, hinting at the fact that he could return.
He does.
Yeah, he does. There are 3 more the Wishmaster movies. At least one of them is definitely, I think, supposed to be like in canon with it because Alex Divoff is playing the same Jinn. After that, he's not in them, so I don't know if maybe it's going to be like, oh, it's a different Jinn kind of thing. But I don't know. We're not covering those, though, next week. You may be like, oh, that's what we're going to do. But no, we're not. It's not time for that, though, because first we have to get through final thoughts. Yeah, final thoughts. I mean, I've said it throughout this. I said it last week when I said we were going to talk about this movie. I watched this movie off of a recommendation from the Dead Meat podcast. They talked about it like years ago, and I discovered their podcast, and I was like, just listening to their podcast talking about it, I was like, I need to see this movie. This movie sounds so crazy. I want to see this. And I went and watched it earlier this year and was like, I love this movie. It is crazy. It is stupid. It's not a great movie by any means. It's probably not even a good movie, but it's a fun movie that I love. I love the bad acting choices from some characters. I love the djinn. I love the effects, except for the CGI effects. I don't love those. But but I understand why they're there, and they don't make me mad or anything. As we've discussed in other podcasts, with like the, Hatchet series, I love random horror Easter eggs. You throw in a Kane Hodder, I'll go, oh, Kane Hodder's here, and it'll make me like that scene, even if the scene wasn't good, because I'm like, oh, he's here. So I love it. It's great. It's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah. I will second pretty much most of what Austin has said, in that it is not a good movie, but boy, is it a fun movie. Visually, there is just so much going on. The practical effects in this movie are pretty fantastic, as you would expect from the K&B team. It's definitely worth a watch. And I think the experience would be enhanced by watching this movie with others, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Definitely one to watch if you're a horror fan, especially if you're a fan of like the classic horror with all the really cool practical effects. The CGI effects, again, are a little bit rough, but there is far more practical than CGI effects in this movie, so
yeah,
definitely worth a watch. Woo!
Yeah.
Wishmaster.
Yeah, as I started to say before we went over that part, we will not be covering Wishmaster 2 through 4 in the next 3 weeks. I'm sorry, big Wishmaster fans. I'm sure you exist, hypothetically.
Maybe.
Yeah. This was the situation where at one point the Wishmaster was supposed to be on the schedule next year with all 4 happening, because I was going to make it happen because I wanted to talk about this movie that bad that I was like, I'm going to talk about the Wishmaster within year 2, way before it probably deserves to be talked about as a franchise. But then, like, so many different, you've heard us talk about it on different episodes, there was tons of different changes that have had to happen due to different movies coming out at different times, and everything just got rearranged. Eventually, I just had to go, I'm going to break my own rules. I'm not going to cover a whole franchise here because I just have to talk about the first Wishmaster. So we will talk about them at some point. Like, they're on the schedule within like the next 6 years or something. Like, so yeah, it's gonna be a while, but eventually we will get to them. But we just don't have time right now. So next week we are going to be talking about, what are we talking about? What do you want to know, audience? Well, we've told you multiple times at this point, because next week it's Halloween. Like, it is Halloween next week when you're listening to this podcast, if you listen to it the day it comes out. So we're talking about Halloween. Like, how can we not talk about John Carpenter's Halloween on Halloween if that's an option? Like, we're doing it. Next week we'll be covering the classic Halloween. But yeah, so but also, once again, I'll say it here too, just so you're prepared. We're not starting the 13 episode arc on the Halloween franchise next week.
No. It will just be the one-off Halloween.
Just the one-off for just the original Halloween.
Or Halloween.
Yeah, we will talk about the other ones next year.
Eventually.
We are. It's next year. It's already on the schedule. It's happening. It's going to happen. We're going to talk about them. It's just, I want to talk about Christmas horror this year, so we can't, we got to wait. Sorry. But yeah, so next week, Halloween. If you like this podcast, please give it a 5-star review and leave a comment or whatever you can do on whatever app you're using. Like it, subscribe, I don't know. All the things. Yeah. Google, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, we're on all of them. Tell your friends. Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your third cousin twice removed. We also have a Patreon if you want to support us directly. It is patreon.com/horrorboys. And if you give us money on that, like, depending on what tier you're on, you'll get, like, bonus content that we'll, like, have to make. Like, right now we haven't made it, but we will the second people give us money for it. So, give us money. We'll find time.
On you guys.
Yeah, we'll find the time. Some of our friends are moving. We have our whole Sundays free again now. So, we'll make time for these bonus recordings if we have to. Yeah. I've been Austin, and he's been Chris.
I've been Chris.
I say this. This is my part of the outro, Chris. Gosh darn it. Don't step over me.
I'm going to step.
I've been Austin. He's been Chris. I've been joined by him. That's what I normally say. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.